Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. It's me, Chris and Pat, back in the pub to answer your burning questions. But before we get onto the topics, Football Daily nominated for awards this week. Hamill, what
Can you
awards?
Adam and Eve it, mate? 4 FBA awards, Football Blogging Awards. You voted for us, you put us in this situation. So first and foremost, thank you very much. But apparently you can still vote. It's a free-for-all up until the 22nd of April. So please get in the description below, check out those links, vote for us again if you've already voted. Be very much appreciated, but it is Best Overall Content Creator.
That's the
Champions League, baby.
That's the one we want.
That is the Champions League. Best International Content Creator, which won last year, the Europa League. No one minds back-to-back Europa Leagues. You know, Unai's built a career off of it. Best Podcast, Sunday Vibes Extra Time.
Come on.
The only one I care about.
Come on.
I mean, yeah, that would be lovely. And Best Influencer, Joseph Thomlinson.
Get on.
Ginge.
Get on, boy.
The idea that he's influenced any young minds out there, pretty scary, but, you know, we're proud of him nonetheless, so please vote for him. Let's move on to the questions.
Yeah, let's get on to the questions then. The first one was sent in by
Cheers.
Footballman890. He says, what players can Arsenal realistically sign to improve them as a side next season? Pato, resident Gooner.
Looking forward to you taking complete control
Who
of
do
this.
you need? What positions have you identified you need and who do you want to sign?
We need a left back, we need at least one centre back, we need a winger, and in an ideal world, I think we would like another central midfielder and a backup right back.
It's a big turnover.
5.
It's
okay.
not that big a turnover, really. Like when you think that at least one of those, at least 2 of those would probably be backup players, then it becomes like 3 kind of starters. I think that's all right.
Given a lot of your signings were quick fixes as well, when Unai first came in, he probably wants a summer like that, doesn't he? That wouldn't be surprising, I guess, to the backroom staff of the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think a winger's a real key area, but to be honest, we should focus on the defence first. Like, I'd be happy if Arsenal didn't even bother with a winger this summer. I'd consider that to be a bit of a missed opportunity, but frankly, the defence is where the money should be spent. And we've seen some pretty unrealistic transfer rumours over the last few weeks. Alaba, Umtiti.
Umtiti, is it unrealistic though?
Not
I'm
a
being
chance.
I'm being swayed by the
Not
press
a
on
chance.
Umtiti.
If he leaves, then really the only suitors, I think,
United.
the only significant suitors would be United and Arsenal, and United will just outpay us. The only difference would be if you didn't make Champions League and we did.
Or we have potentially other targets.
That's true.
I think Man United will probably go. I don't think Umtiti will be top of the list for Manchester United. I think if he becomes available, he'll be up there. But
Why would Barcelona make him available?
well, the rumour
Supposedly
is.
because they want to get De Ligt,
Yeah.
and they think that Longley and De Ligt would be their long-term centre-back pairing.
Well, he's currently third choice as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he was absolutely indispensable last season, wasn't
he's
he?
also
Umtiti?
got-
He was holding that defence together at various points. Are they just worried about his
He's had
current
three
injury
he's had
issues?
three
Right.
Three knee
injuries
injuries
More
since
understandable.
then, yeah. And of course, they also just invested in Todibo, the kind of 19-year-old centre-back who they think is going to be a
And
good
De Jong
prospect
can
as
play
well.
there.
Valverde's a
And
fan of
PK's
Todibo, isn't he?
And PK's still there, you know, like PK, Longley, De Ligt with Todibo as a backup. It's a pretty decent core of centre-backs.
Just a bit of like background on the Umtiti thing though. The reason that Barcelona are rather annoyed at him is that upon his 3rd injury to the knee, it's currently a cartilage injury. So he's got rogue cartilage floating around, which he shouldn't really have at his age. That's not a particularly good sign. And Barcelona said, you need surgery to clear cartilage, and Umtiti refused to have surgery. So Umtiti should have had surgery and would probably have been back now fully fledged if he'd have had that surgery.
Right.
Why?
He didn't want
accepting
to
that
go
surgery?
under
Is
the
he
knife.
taking the
He didn't want he
advice
was
of someone else?
No, he basically believed that he could recover without surgery just by doing exercise and training with a physician.
That seems misguided.
So instead of the surgery, he's opted to do physio and build it up and build the muscles around it
in
up.
the long run, that might be better. I mean, like like often surgery is a way of just speeding up the healing process. So that might be better for him in the long term, but
I mean,
it's a bit of a gamble.
It is the same injury that kind of finished Puyol's career. You remember when Puyol had the knee cartilage problems? That's the same thing that is currently hindering Umtiti, but Umtiti's so young. I would be worried if I was Umtiti that Barcelona are going to cut their losses with him. I was reading reports this morning in about 3 different Spanish newspapers that they want to sell 300 million worth of assets this summer in order to balance the books.
I mean, that could be Coutinho, and 2 others can, if they want 120.
Coutinho's definitely going to be one of them. But
That's
then who
100.
are the 2 others? Because maybe Malcolm, you look at Malcolm as being identified as a failure, but
Can't see
who
anyone
pays?
paying over 30, 40 for Malcolm.
Unless it's China.
And even if they sell Umtiti, Malcolm and Coutinho, I still think that's 200 million max.
Yeah.
I don't think they're getting more than that.
Well, the other player that is been identified by a lot of Spanish press is Rakitic. Apparently, PSG came in last summer for him. This has been revealed this week. That PSG came in last summer to the tune of nearly 80 million, and Valverde put a halt to it at the last minute.
I think 30 million is a lot for Rakitic at this stage of his career. Like, I think Barcelona are better off keeping him. I mean, if somebody offers 80, you take it. If somebody offers 40, you take it.
I think if Valverde stays, Rakitic stays. He seems pretty central to his kind of ethos at Barca, doesn't it?
Either way, if they are looking to regain 200, 300 million worth of assets, and they're bringing De Ligt in,
Umtiti is all of a sudden in the
Umtiti
firing
is
line.
suddenly in the
If
firing
you're
line.
Arsenal United, you're both fans. Are you comfortable with spending £80 million on someone who is recovering from a third extensive injury?
Well, the rumour isn't 80 million pounds. The rumour is kind of 60 million euros, which is not that unreasonable. I think Man United will probably have other targets, but really for Arsenal, in a way, I'd rather spend that on people around the rest of the squad. Like, so for instance,
I agree.
Like Umtiti would be great, but I think you could get 2 very good centre-back prospects for that. You could get a full-back. So if you've got Kieran Tierney and two younger centre-backs, I think that would be arguably a more sensible use of your money.
And there's still something in my head that's like, Umtiti to Arsenal. I can't picture it.
Well, especially if you're, why? I think that's a signing that a team who is an already pretty complete side makes to maybe push them over the edge in terms of going for the title. So, or Manchester United really kind of wrapping up 4th. If you're Arsenal and you're still a little bit of a project at this point, and you do have limited funds, I do think it makes much more sense to spend elsewhere. I actually when I saw that we were doing this on the script, not that I gave it a lot of thought, but I actually went kind of straight to RB Leipzig just because they've been in successive years the 2nd best defence in the Bundesliga, and I think they have a kind of surplus of young talent that all want to start now. So, I mean, they've been going with Konate and Orban, and Orban's, I think, contributed to over 6 goals this season. He seems to be pretty prolific for a centre-back.
He's captain as well.
And Konate's doing the majority of the defending, over 4 tackles and interceptions, a pretty adept passer. Involved in around 40 to 45 passes a game, so he's obviously the chief distributor from the back. But this means that, Mukiele, who can play centre back and right back, hasn't really been used. I think he's only clocked up 700 minutes this season, and I thought he was going to be a superstar last year, having watched him sparingly at Montpellier. I think he made over 30 appearances for Montpellier before he moved. And Upamecano is the big name there, isn't he? But I'm not quite sure what the deal with him has been this season. I think the trouble is strong elements of rotation, but do you think that maybe? I've got another suggestion for a right back, but Mukiele, would you be willing to shed 20 million pounds on a young prospect like that? He's good anticipation. Can beat a man. I think he's averaging over 1.5 dribbles a game, 1.5 key passes at the moment by virtue of being able to play right back as well. And I think at 21 he's probably looking for more minutes. Could someone like Unai Emery get that bit more out of him that would elevate him in order to play for Arsenal?
I think the issue is probably going to be for Arsenal with the arrival of Julian Nagelsmann, who is going to want to play a back 3 for sure. He's not going to adapt away from the philosophy that's worked for him over and over at Hoffenheim, that he's going to want to lose any of that defensive personnel. In fact, I would argue he's probably going to want to add to that defensive personnel with Willy Orban getting no younger, although he is captain.
He's 26, Willy Orban.
I think he'll probably add to that defensive personnel. So I would be extremely surprised if they didn't part way. If they part way with one of the centre-backs, be it Upamecano or Konate, then it's going to be a chunk.
I don't
50
think it'll be
million euros, something
Upamecano. I
like
think
that.
it could be Konate or Mukiele.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll sell. The thing is about Mukiele, I'd say it's a bit of. It'd be weird if you said you're not good enough to start for Leipzig currently, but you are good enough to start for Arsenal currently. Now Arsenal have worse defenders, but they're not overall a worse team really right now. But I would happily take him. I think Konate's been quite strongly linked. I think Upamecano sounds incredibly overpriced. Like, I remember when people were talking about 100 mil, and I didn't really see why. Like, he's a good centre-back prospect. Is he better than De Ligt? No. And people are talking about De Ligt for 80. So I wasn't quite sure what was going on there. Yeah, I mean, I think Tierney seems like the outstanding candidate at left back. Though on the other hand, he is very attacking, and you could argue that if we were going to go back to a back four, and we were keeping Bellerin, then it makes more sense to get a more defensively minded fullback because Bellerin's going to get forward. So then Bernardo from Brighton would be quite interesting.
Would you put more emphasis on left back or centre back?
Surely centre back. State of Mustafi.
I put equal emphasis on them. If you get a really solid defensive left back, then you can play four at the back. Right now we have to play three at the back pretty much.
So
and to be fair, Kolasinac has been the best attacking left back arguably in Europe this season. He's been outstanding in attack, but he cannot defend, or at least he can't defend in a four. Ben Chilwell's good. Ben Chilwell would be great. He costs far too much money. Yeah. Like, again, I don't see the value in him. Ben Chilwell is already overpriced. Like, so I think that you can get Tierney for half that money and then get a centre back, and that to me seems like a much better use. So yeah, I think Tierney or someone like Bernardo from Brighton, or someone like Tagliafico from Ajax, who's a little bit older but is a bit more experienced.
I like Tagliafico.
Somebody there, and then another centre back next to them, like Mario Hermoso, Fernando Calero, Malang Sarr from Nice.
Hermoso's been great for Espanyol, hasn't he?
Yeah, the Espanyol have not been good defensively, but
I feel like Ajax are going to get tillaged, aren't they? Ajax are going to get absolutely pillaged this summer for their top talent.
But they don't mind that. They're perfectly happy to do that and rebuild, and that's a real test of how good Overmars actually is, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tierney's a fantastic option. And
getting a little bit sick of talking about him departing Celtic, to be honest.
Konate, do you think he could do a good enough defensive job? Pat has raised the issue of he's better going forward.
I just think his job at Celtic is to contribute to the build-up play. I mean, his deep progressions are outrageous. His XG build-up, which is the quality of the build-up play he contributes to, is something starting like 0.9, which means more often than not, if Tierney is being utilised down the channels, it leads to a shot of decent quality.
Yeah.
And someone like Christopher Ajer Boyata in Scotland is a defensive behemoth. Like, you can just leave kind of him at the back, and his athleticism, his positioning, kind of accommodate for Tierney being a little bit more adventurous. But I mean, when he plays for Scotland, he's more of a left centre back, and even then, he's Scotland's best or second best player. In that regard, so I have no doubt that he can be a lot more defensive.
Yeah, I think those are the best options.
And do it extremely well. He's got the sort of just all-round, a little bit like Ben Chilwell, but better going forward. He's just got that. He's an extremely well-rounded player.
Yeah, I think if you could get Kieran Tierney in and you could get Konate in for under sort of £60 million, I think you've done unbelievable business.
Yeah, I think that'd be great, and I think we'll sell Mustafi. We've got loads and loads of space on the wage bill opening up, because you can raise your wage bill by, I think, something like 8 million a season, and we're going to have Cech, Welbeck, Ramsey, Lichtsteiner. All these guys are just leaving. That's not even taking into account sales. Those are guys who are just leaving because their contracts are at an end or because they're retiring. So that's like 400k a week right there before you make any sales. That's a lot of money.
So before we started shooting this, me and Patty were having the discussion about Mesut Ozil and what to do about Mesut. You don't think he should be sold this summer?
No, I think it depends on what Emery's plan is. If Emery is not going to play him very much, of course you should sell him if you can, but I just don't think you'll be able to, because someone's going to have to pay a chunk to get him, and then they're going to have to pay really big wages, so I don't think it's going to happen. I think that the best version of Arsenal still includes Mesut Ozil. Like, he hasn't really played very much this season. When he has played, generally he's been excellent. Particularly when he's played behind two, in his actual position rather than off the wing.
So if not Ozil, who would you sell, like a big asset, in order to strengthen the side, in order to bring one or two players? Is there any first teamers that you think actually Arsenal aren't as dependent on as people make out?
I don't think we actually do need to sell a big asset. I think the way the budget is a little bit kind of made up. Like last summer it was made up. We actually had more than everyone said we did, and I think we'll sell some peripheral players. So I think we'll sell Mustafi if we can. We'll probably sell Chambers. We'll sell El Neni finally.
What if you got 50 mil for Bellerin and you could go and get Youssef Attal out of Nice for 20?
I mean, I think if you were going to get 50 mil for Bellerin, I'd say Yeah, given his injuries, I'd probably take that.
Really?
Oh, maybe I'd want to get to 60. But if you could get to 60, then I think you can get Tierney and Wan-Bissaka. Like, you basically add, you swap Bellerin and 10 mil for Tierney and Wan-Bissaka. Overall, that's a big upgrade, defensively particularly.
Yeah.
What
about one of your
and then
strikers?
Wan-Bissaka, who's still learning the attacking game, can afford to be the more defensive player. Whereas I think Tierney and Bellerin, I still think that's a bit unbalanced.
What about one of your strikers?
If you get a really big offer, I think you should be open to that as well. Basically, I think there's this attitude that like, if a player's playing well, you should just never ever want to sell them. But it's better to sell a season too early than a season too late. And I think in Arsenal's case, we're going to have a decent amount of money actually. I think because if we make top four, we'll get about another 30 mil. Our kit sponsorship is going to bring in another 30 mil a season from this summer. So even if our budget is, say, 40 mil, before that it could rise to 100 mil if we make Champions League. If somebody makes a sufficiently large offer, I think you think about it. Like, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Like, neither one of them is terribly young. So you could say, okay, right, well, if we can let Lacazette go, like, say, I don't know, Atletico Madrid type team is going to come in with a big offer, I think that would be fine to let him go for big money and then bring in someone like Memphis Depay, a goal-scoring wide player.
I was saying on Football Social that I prefer to let Oba go than Lacazette, and a lot of people on the panel were surprised at that, and that is down to a few factors. You know, age. I think Lacazette is probably more crucial to your all-round play, and I think he improves individuals around him. I think there's certain players like Iwobi that enjoy playing with him, enjoy linking up with him, but it doesn't seem feasible that Arsenal would get, what did you pay for him? 45? 50?
Yeah, 48.
Yeah, that you'd get kind of your money back, and I think that
I think we'd probably get more than our money back.
Do you feel like you've had a kind of sufficient return on investment to even entertain bids for him yet? Like, would it be, who would you pick basically?
It just depends who kind of brought in the bigger offer. I think if Real Madrid said something like, right, okay, we don't like any of the striker options on the market, so we're going to give you like 70 mil or something for an old Aubameyang who'll tide us over for a couple of years, because I think Aubameyang will actually age better than people think. He's quite a good poacher. Then I think that would be absolutely fine. Like Aubameyang is a better striker overall. He scores more goals. We create more chances with him in the side. Lacazette's a better finisher, but Aubameyang has done a much more important job this season. While his link-up play is not as good as Lacazette, he's been more involved in getting the ball up the field. Like, he's often peeled out to the wing and then run the ball up the wing. And but yeah, I think you have to just be willing to let him go if it allows you to fund like a total rebuild of a bunch of problem areas.
Yeah, and
if you can get your midfielder, you can get a goal-scoring winger, you can get a left back, a right back, a centre back. You can do all of that just by selling one of those guys. Yeah. No matter how painful it is, you have to do it.
Have you checked out, kind of overperforming clubs that are on the brink of securing Champions League football? Like Atalanta, for example, have statistically the second best attack at the moment in Serie A, don't they?
Yeah.
After Juventus, I think they've scored 57 goals.
I think they've scored 60. They're two back from.
Or maybe I'm actually reading it from an article from a game week before. They're just behind Juventus, aren't they? There's definitely some value in that side. We spoke about Freuler before, haven't we? Who can contribute really kind of progressively on the attacking end and doesn't give up much on the defensive end. But I suppose their attack is aging, isn't it? Ilicic, Papu Gomez, and Zapata. Is there any kind of clubs or any outside shouts that you've kind of unearthed that you think might be able to make an impact? Or is it just a matter of going back to Nicolas Pepe?
Well, I mean, Pepe would be fantastic, and obviously we've been linked with Ismail Assar from Rennes, Marcus Thuram from Guingamp.
Especially if they go down. If Guingamp go down, Thuram's going to be available at pittance.
Yeah, but the place I'd probably go is actually Villarreal, who are at the other end of the table. Like, especially if they go down. Like Villarreal have Fornals, who's got a good buyout clause, and Samuel Chukwueze, who's a right winger. He's 19. He's got 4 goals, 2 assists in the league this season, which is not that many, but he hasn't got that many minutes either. About 0.4 expected goals and assists per 90, which is very, very good for a 19-year-old in the top league. Lots of dribble numbers and a really, really, really good passer. more importantly, playing off that right wing, that's been a real problem area for us. Somebody to play off the right. Iwobi is terrible on the right and great on the left or through the middle. So we need somebody who can fill in on the right, because I think we'll probably try and let Mkhitaryan go if we can get money for him. So I think that Chukwueze would be a really, really good one as well. So I actually think that there's tons of talent around, like especially young wide players, loads of them. Yeah. Fullbacks, surprisingly good as well. But it's just really kind of like, when you've got that limited budget, it's more about just not making any huge mistakes.
I was thinking potentially of, I know that you are desperate for that right-sided player with Iwobi preferring the left, but I was kind of thinking of a player like David Neres who could come in and fill...
Well, he plays off the right mostly as well.
He does, but he's very left-footed.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like, I mean, I think that guy coming off the right who can go down the line or come in on his left foot is kind of what we need.
Yeah, I mean, I think last season it was like 25 goal involvements in 3,000 minutes, something like that. I think his minutes have actually subsided a little bit this season.
But he's still got 14, 15 goal involvements.
He has. He's got, I think, 15 goal involvements in 17 Eredivisie starts, which is pretty impressive, or 16 and 17, something like that. But he's obviously experienced less minutes this season. I think he'll probably end up with around 2,500 with Dusan Tadic coming into the side and playing such a crucial role. But he's a guy who can operate off the right, can operate centrally. Obviously, Aaron Ramsey is leaving. You may end up needing somebody to also fill that void if Mesut isn't favoured. What about somebody like David Neres, or are you concerned?
I love David Neres. Like, I love him, but he actually feels a bit like a Wenger signing. Like, David Neres is a really, really good technical player, but my one concern about him is that he doesn't actually have extreme pace. Like,
no, he doesn't.
He's quite quick, but I think that when you look at that Arsenal squad, what they actually lack in attack, Aubameyang aside, is outstanding pace.
Yeah.
So I would genuinely, if I had a choice between two players, one who was slightly superior technically but a bit slower, and one who was a bit faster but slightly worse technically, I'd go for the faster player, because I think we really do need that kind of game-breaking speed.
I kind of feel like when I've watched Neres, he's a little bit of an Eric Lamela type player. I think they profile pretty similarly, him and Eric Lamela, and I think that wouldn't be the worst option. And if you do need that sort of athleticism, man, I would go and get Malcolm out of Barca.
I was really keen for us to get Malcolm last year. I think Malcolm would have been great for us. He's so fast, really good in the build-up as well. Did so much build-up work when he was at Bordeaux. Huge numbers of shots, really creative, specifically really creative.
Yeah.
And
I also believe that the season at Barcelona has hindered him to a level where other major clubs won't be as interested. I don't think you're going to see a Man City coming in, or another major club. No. Teams think he's regressed.
I mean, the only other major club that were in for him last year was Roma, and that's exactly where he should have gone.
Yeah, but equally now, I think Arsenal would be almost lone suitors in a market where he's going to knock 10 million off his price tag.
And you could also get him on loan with an option to buy, set at like 35 mil or something, which I think Barca would probably take.
Not keen to retain Denis Suarez?
Believe it or not, I didn't want to sign him in the first place. And
he does work 3 days a week in Topshop on Oxford Street, so not overly convinced anybody's going to want to rehire Denis Suarez.
He's just not a good player. Like, it's fine. Like, I think. I think Malcolm would be okay. If you wanted to spend a little bit less on the wide player, then I think Chukwueze or Malcolm would be pretty good. And then you can afford to spend a little bit more to get, say, Tierney instead of Tagliafico.
Well, Pione Sisto
plays off the left, really. He's a good player.
It's interesting to see whether he'd be able to make that step up, isn't it?
I mean, again, like Celta Vigo look like they're going to go down, so a bargain might be able to be struck. But yeah, I think I would probably rather give the minutes to Iwobi than Pione Sisto. Is more of as a passer, Iwobi is quite exceptional, and Pione Sisto is a very good player. But I think you could get somebody who fits Arsenal's needs a little bit better than Sisto.
You've also got Reece Nelson returning from a pretty successful loan this season.
Get some minutes.
Where do you think he's going to play on that left-hand side? Do you think instead of Iwobi, or will he be?
I think they'll be swapped in and out. Like Nelson has mostly played. To be honest, he's still been mostly a sub for Hoffenheim, but he's played off the left or occasionally further forward in the two. So I think Nelson will get some minutes next season. But to me, fixing the defence is absolutely the thing. Like, a lot of Arsenal fans have got keyed into this idea that we were terrible in the middle of the season, and actually I think we just had to have more defenders on the pitch. We had to. Our defenders were so bad that we had to kind of supplement them with an extra man, and that meant taking an attacker out. Like, if you fix that by adding a couple of defenders, then I really think that you're able to open the taps a little bit in attack, and that will make a big difference.
And obviously at the start you said potentially a central midfielder. I feel like your central midfield options aren't terrible. Obviously Guendouzi, Xhaka, Torreira as a midfield three.
Yeah, Guendouzi Torreira is a really exciting pair.
But with the loss of Ramsey and Ozil not being favoured, did you go out and get another youngster in there?
I also thought that so when I saw central midfielder, I thought, I mean, that's quite kind of a secondary need, isn't it?
Definitely.
And by that point, you might have already spent out. So
or you say, well, we will buy that if we can sell enough to buy that.
Yeah. And I mean, I went looking for sort of bargains in the Freuler mould who could kind of contribute on the attacking and defensive end and kind of unearth Sensi, 23-year-old from Sassuolo. I mean, I just love the brand of football that Sassuolo play under De Zerbi. It's really adventurous, attacking, intricate. I mean, they're statistically the fifth worst team on the defensive end in Serie A this season, so they have given up, you know, solidity. They are porous as a result. But yeah, I think you could do a lot worse in the sense of really good amounts of key passes, so I think 2 per game. Not a bad dribbler, quite a cultured little passer. So, I mean, involved in 50, 55, you know, passes a game. It's sort of kind of shades of Bernardo Silva, maybe at Monaco, but not quite as, you know, obviously naturally talented. So I thought he might be a little bit of a bargain in that regard, but maybe someone, you know, who's a bit more of an authority on Serie A football can kind of guide me on that. But what kind of central midfielder, if you were to buy one, I guess what profile would you be going for? Is it someone who's a bit more of a gamble?
We just need somebody who can carry the ball with their feet. Like, we've got none of that in the squad.
So if Southampton go down, do you just go and take Lamina?
He's a bit more defensive in a way. Like Højbjerg would be a better shout for Arsenal. But I think we need a guy who can progress the ball, who's going to defend enough, who's going to progress the ball, and who's a bit creative. Like, that's the way I'd want to replace Ramsey. Ramsey is not defensive enough. Ramsey's not a good enough dribbler and never has been. And so when he's in midfield, he's often been a bit of a problem because he doesn't give you enough defensively to make you solid. And in attack, he's good. Like, he's good at getting into goal scoring positions.
He's impactful, isn't he?
But he's not particularly where he's been really good this season is coming on late in games. Like, so I don't know. I mean, like, you could think about someone like a Fornals playing him in midfield where he has played before. He's a very good dribbler, obviously a really good creator, and actually works pretty hard defensively. I think Bryce Mendes, who's actually more of a forward at Celta, he could, I think, quite comfortably drop back into a more midfield role. But I don't know. It's a very difficult position, and because it is kind of a secondary need, I'm happier to say, well, you know, like, if we get a backup right back, then Maitland-Niles can get some midfield minutes, which is actually where he plays. And he's a fantastic dribbler. He's been really good and good defensively as well.
Yeah, he's putting up like over 3 tackles per 90.
I think he's over 5 tackles and interceptions per 90
crazy
right now. And I mean, obviously those are boosted by playing right wing back, but really, really good at ball progression. So I think that there are players to be had there, but again, that's kind of one of the situations where I'd be happy to say to a scout, we've got 15 to 20 mil to finish to fill this position. Yeah. Like, find somebody we can gamble on, because to be honest, Guendouzi and Torreira are going to be the future of Arsenal's midfield. Torreira is already a very good player and will probably continue to be a very good defensive midfielder. Guendouzi is a pretty good player and is clearly going to be a superstar. So, I mean, I think that's probably your midfield pair.
Guendouzi for 8 mil could be one of the signings of the decade.
Yeah, it could. So, at the moment, we're looking at Konate potentially being as the number 1 target at centre-half. Left-back's Kieran Tierney.
This is
still
sick.
Struggling occasionally for a winger, but potentially Malcolm, somebody like that sort of build. And then, very last choice, a centre mid / right back.
Passing on Sensi, yeah?
Yeah, not really defensive enough. Not really
I think those two, though, centre mid and right back, are your last positions, aren't they? That you're really going to care about this.
Yeah, and I'm
very good defensively for a Sassuolo side who is terrible defensively.
He's okay defensively, but I mean, like, you look at his numbers and he's good. He's good all rounder. Like, is my kind of feeling on Sensi. Whereas what you want is somebody who's going to be extremely good in any one area. I mean, like, if somebody like Kovacic comes on the market, you go for that guy. but
He might well do, man. Chelsea fans cannot stand it.
well, and Chelsea are not going to be able to buy him. So
Yeah, and
that
I think
kind of thing would be interesting.
he didn't get any minutes under Zidane in the previous regime, so I don't see why he's getting any minutes under Zidane in the current regime. And we've seen him in recent weeks favouring the likes of Dani Ceballos in central midfield.
Epitome of rock and hard players. Yeah, that's because Dani Ceballos is an absolute baller and should definitely be playing.
Yeah, but if he's playing and Kovacic is out on loan, I actually don't see Kovacic coming back and getting minutes.
Sure.
So that's very interesting. But what do you guys make of the Arsenal
Rodrigo
situation?
De Paul, sign him.
Yes,
Sorry,
bad move. Come the summer, let us know your thoughts on who they should sign, who they should let go in the comments below. Moving on now to quick fire questions then. The first one comes from Quite the Calamity. He says, Lautaro Martinez,
first time.
can he become the main man for Inter if Icardi leaves?
Can what, sorry?
Can he become the main man for Inter?
Lautaro Martinez. I like Lautaro Martinez in that I feel like he can play anywhere along the front line. He's nowhere near as prolific as Icardi, or he doesn't operate kind of solely in the box, is my understanding of him at current. He's been an able deputy, but I feel like he's someone that would probably enjoy playing as a second striker with Mauro Icardi. He's not an out-and-out just a penalty box poacher, is what I've taken from his numbers anyway. But I mean,
he's been playing as a centre forward recently, though, right?
Yes.
He's getting over.
In his absence.
Recently, he's been getting 4 shots a game and good shots as well.
I think across the course of a season, he's just scraping over 2 though.
But his expected goals and expected assists per 90 is like 0.74 right now.
Pretty decent.
Which is pretty good. That's over 1,000 minutes as well. So I think I actually think that I'd be fine with this. Like I think Keita's been really, really good.
Keita's played as a lone forward as well.
Yeah.
I feel like
and Jan Karamo is going to come back from loan. So then you've got Karamo, Keita, and Martinez. That would actually be a better forward line overall than the old days of Perisic, Candreva, and Icardi.
But it'd be nice to see those guys playing like a really kind of traditional or attacking 4-3-3, or with a partner of some sort. Like I think you don't get the best out of Keita Balde or Martinez if they're hovering around in the box in the same way that Icardi does.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be played in the same way that Icardi does. Icardi's so uninvolved in build-up play, isn't he, that I can't see Martinez doing that. But if you're into Milan and you get 110 million euros for Icardi, you don't not buy a replacement.
I don't know. I actually think Martinez is one of the best young forwards around at the moment. Like I don't think they're going to get a Jovic or someone. So from that point of view, I'd be happy to upgrade the rest of my squad if I could. Like I think that Keita, Karamo, and Martinez is a really good complement of attacking players.
Do you think they're going to make Keita permanent? Because prior to him,
I mean,
he prospered. I think he scored, was it 3 and 4, playing as a centre forward, and prior to that period, he did not have a good start to his Inter Milan tenure. I mean,
those numbers have been good the entire time he's been there.
It's a difficult question to answer without kind of us going away and doing some real kind of focused research on the subject matter. But I think I'm inclined to agree with you, Joe. If Icardi goes, they're going to
chuck big money at somebody.
Yeah, man. Guarantees 20 goals.
I just don't know who that is though.
Yeah.
Like I don't know who.
They'll be looking across the city. Well,
hard to identify, but do they
then would have been great for them.
I'd rather have Martinez.
Do they then go, okay, here's 60 million for Memphis? And I know it's a sideways step for Memphis in his career, but
he's not a centre forward. I mean, they've still got a problem then of who they're going to play as a centre forward. They could play Keita there, but I still think he's better off the right. Like, I mean, so
I think Keita's
they were interested in Malcolm, weren't they? Maybe if you complement that forward line with someone like Malcolm, you do.
Yeah.
And I mean, Candreva and Perisic were contributing, pretty decently in the first half of last season, and in the second half is when they seem to encounter a lot of issues.
You know what Inter are going to do? Inter is the sort of team that are going to go, okay, well here's 30 million for carrying Benzema. Like that's exactly the sort of thing that Inter Milan are going to do.
That's the thing. Like that's my point. Like in a way, I'd rather have Martinez than like put my faith in Inter to make the right signings. Like I think they're getting better in that regard. But I hated the Nainggolan signing when it happened. I hate it still.
I mean, when you get a midfield of like Nainggolan, Borja, Valero, and João Mario, you can see why the Inter fans are a little bit uninspired.
Yeah, though on the other hand, Gagliardini and Brozovic, there's really good talent there. Like, in fact, there's tons of talent in that Inter squad, but it just they need to hold it by the top and just shake it and let all the shit fall out the bottom.
Yeah.
So there's tons of garbage and wasted wages.
My issue is that if they I think you can't let Icardi and Skriniar leave in the same summer. Do not let that happen.
If you let Icardi go, like, look, Icardi's a pain in the arse and he's not playing right now. Let him go, and that means you can keep Skriniar. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Like, rebuild the rest of the squad. I mean, that's fine.
They're just about a Champions League club at the moment, and you know that they're going to be extremely aware of how good Atalanta are, and maybe not seeing the points return that they deserve. How consistent Lazio are under Inzaghi, and I think they would go out and maybe spend over the odds on someone they feel guarantees them that amount of goals, even if that doesn't pay into a good long-term strategy.
Yeah, probably right.
So Benzema, I can probably see.
I can see Benzema going through that. That's my answer.
Going back in for Modric.
I feel like Martinez will score more goals than Benzema.
Yeah, definitely.
Next season. In fact, I think he's not
but
that far off in this season.
This is Inter.
Yeah, I think
it's Inter Milan. It's gonna be Benzema. Let's go to the next one then. With Chelsea's transfer ban looming, which players would you bring back in from loan?
Well, I think they're going to need a backup right back, right? You know, like Azpilicueta's amazing, but he turns 30 this summer. He's never been your kind of bomb forward and get balls into the box as centre full-back. Like most of the chances created have been kind of pushing up just over the halfway line and then clipping into to Morata. He had that good connection. So obviously there's Reece James.
Recently nominated for the team of the season, wasn't it?
He was put in the team of the season at Wigan, had a really good year, tons of minutes, and it looks like he's going to come back. He's still 19. And I feel like there's another... Oh, of course, they could try and convince Ole Aina to come back.
He's going to stay at Torino, isn't he?
They've got an option to buy.
7 million option to buy.
But if they say, if they say to him, come back, like, it doesn't matter whether they've got an option to buy. Like, if they could convince him to come back, it doesn't matter what Torino do.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think in terms of the short term, I think Tammy Abraham's probably going to return from loan. Pretty sharpish and slot in there as the backup to Gonzalo Higuain, because I actually think they're going to cut their losses with Michy Batshuayi and sell him on. Yeah. They've tried Batshuayi too many times. He's been on too many loan moves now. 3 different loan clubs. Not a single one of them's worked out for him. Yeah. It's time to make some money on him.
You say not a single one's worked out for him. Like, I think Dortmund probably would have bought him.
He scored well, but not a single one of them have taken up an option or have released every single one.
Valencia was the biggest failing, wasn't it? Like, he's now got to rebuild his stock at Palace.
But even like Dortmund, he was okay.
But I don't know, his scoring record was pretty ridiculous. I don't trust Chelsea's talent evaluation up front at all. Like, Atleti are going to make that deal permanent for Morata, because Morata's been sensational since he's gone there. He's been so good for them. Like, and guess what? Chelsea's attack has got way worse over the course of the season. When was it at its best?
But
it was actually at its best when Morata was
almost
in the front
like
line.
swapping Gonzalo Higuain.
But my problem remains
or playing
with
Hazard
this
as a 9.
not the quick
those were
fix.
terrible
with
ideas.
any of these players. This is like, everybody says I've got an agenda against. I have not got an agenda against Sarri. I hope Maurizio Sarri succeeds. I like watching his football when he plays players that should be playing, like Callum Hudson-Odoi. When he's playing, I love watching him in a Sarri team. It's a brilliant watch. When Ruben Loftus-Cheek's bombing through the midfield under Maurizio Sarri, like, it's glorious to watch. It's not glorious to watch Gonzalo Higuain flanked by Pedro and Willian struggling, and I do not see any of these players as even remotely near the first team under Sarri.
Pedro and Willian have been 2 of Chelsea's more productive players. I feel like the actual, not the crux of the issue, but a big factor to consider is the quality of build-up play, you know, before it reaches these guys. Like Kovacic and Ross Barkley just have been non-existent on the attacking end. You know, apart from
give Loftus-Cheek a go.
Little purple patch that Ross Barkley had at the start of the season. Yeah, they just struggled to find balance in that midfield 3, haven't they? I think that's really been the issue.
Yeah, and got no attack.
And you'll continue to get like a solid. I mean, Pedro's got 10 goals. 10 goals this season actually across all competitions.
But this is my point. If Callum Hudson-Odoi can't get a start, what hope in hell do any of these returning loanees have?
Well, it's just because they've got no option. Like, they're going to.
But they have. They'll remain Marcos Alonso at left back, Azpilicueta at right back.
Yeah, but that's fine. I don't really care if they do that. Like, it doesn't really affect me. But this is what I think they should do. I think they should play Hudson-Odoi. I think they. Oh God, Barkley, it's dreadful. Like, I think, you know, you would give those minutes to Mount or Loftus-Cheek instead of Barkley. Kovacic, really good defender, really good ball progressor, not a goal-scoring midfielder. Barkley, bad at everything. Like, Loftus-Cheek, very good attacking midfielder, I think, or at least has the potential to be one. And Mason Mount, I think, deserves a shot. But these are just guys who I think you bring them in because you assume at some point they're gonna either have Champions League or Europa League games. They're gonna have to fade those minutes, and they're gonna have to do it in the FA Cup and the League Cup as well. So they're gonna have to find ways to rotate.
I actually think Barkley would be decent at the tip of a diamond. Like I think
he'd be decent at best.
I don't think you just can't rely on him to, like, he's a tiny little passer, but he's not that sort of player that provides impetus and like give and go, is it? It's like make the pass, be stationary. Although he has kind of always had a habit.
What about Tiemo? If he didn't want to return, but if they force the move back, Bakayoko returns, do you slot him into a midfield three?
I think Bakayoko probably deserves to play, but
I think you probably want to stay at AC, to be honest. The treatment that he got in the first half of the season.
Yeah,
and also that doesn't solve your issue at all. Like Bakayoko, good defender and good ball progressor, like with the ball at his feet, but again is not an attacking midfielder by any stretch of the imagination. And you've basically got the choice between him and Kante, and nobody gets chosen over Kante.
In fact, he probably adds to the problem, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He probably adds to the
I think
it's good to have
no fault
on the bench.
Yeah, no fault of his own. But.
Yeah, I mean, not being harsh on any of these players, I just personally cannot see a single one of them getting a single start for Chelsea next season in the Premier League.
Yeah, well, that's my concern. I think some of them should.
I mean, if Hazard left, it would change things dramatically.
I think it'll still be Willian and Pedro.
Because there's no go-to.
Oh, Pulisic! I completely forgot Pulisic was arriving. Yeah.
There's no go-to for a system that's not working. Yeah, Pulisic. Yeah.
Pulisic coming in. Final quickfire then before we move to personals. Who are the players and Manchesters? Who are the players and managers who have got the least credit for what they've done this season? Gracia.
That's a good question.
Early doors. I want to throw Gracia into the hat as the manager.
He's getting probably the credit he deserves.
I don't know whether he has. I think all the talk's been about Nuno Espirito Santo, and I think
that's a fair point.
Comparatively, the chat for Gracia, whereas Nuno Espirito Santo has massively outspent him.
But it's because they're both overperforming. But yeah, it's because of the way that Nuno's done it.
I get that, but Gracia comparatively,
looks less sustainable.
He's been outspent. I get the Wolves play some nice football. It's largely counter-attacking.
The squad is so much better than
to survive longer than a season.
Does that not make it what he's done with that squad?
Is unbelievable.
But I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah. So therefore, I think he has been underrated in terms of what he's done because Nuno Espirito Santo is everybody's candidate, I would argue, for manager of the season right now.
Yeah, but I think everyone is also like aware of the talent deficit in terms of to the points total that Watford have at the moment in an FA Cup semi-final. Like I've seen a few great articles, Jonathan Lew's article on Gracia, like he's starting to get the credit he deserves maybe. Across the course, I think people will look back at and go, he finished like 7th or 8th with that squad. Like,
if he gets Europa League football and wins a cup for Watford with that squad,
that'd be mental.
Because the squad, it's not even as if he's gone out and signed 8 of his own players.
No.
Yeah, like if you are somebody to name Watford's defence, like their first choice defence.
Absolute
You can name players, but I literally don't know who they're starting.
Yeah, Kiko Firmino. It is like.
It's quite amazing, really.
It
helps with Capu in front of them.
Yeah, the system definitely compensates, doesn't it, for the shortfall in talent. But I mean, yeah, there's some nice, tidy little players there who when their skill set is paired with the system they play, it really gets the best out of them. I think that's what he's done really well. Identify the talent in his squad and utilised it in a very pragmatic way.
Another manager I think hasn't got enough credit for what he's done this season, I'm going to get back for this, Pochettino. Pochettino, zero spend, no midfielders in the entire squad. £150 million profits they've made this year. That is a world record for any football club in history. The previous highest was Liverpool at £106 million
We'll see what happens
profit.
that next season.
That might well get rinsed, and it is obviously helped by the fact that they have spent zero for 2 consecutive windows. But the fact they spent zero, they put together...
Yeah, that's 3 fullbacks now, isn't it?
Yeah,
3
and also
elite level fullbacks.
they put together a semi-title challenge. Obviously, it wasn't a real one, but that they're even competing for the top 4 with no central midfielders is a miracle.
Yeah,
I mean, losing
to the Champions League.
Yeah, losing 5 in 6 games at a time like this would, a lot of managers, if Sarri goes through that phase, if Arsene Wenger had gone through that phase 2-3 years ago, you begin to, people, would bat them for it, but people are still I think very sensible when it comes to Pochettino, and if anything, this season has kind of heightened his.
You spent nothing. You've had Harry Kane out for 2 months. You've got no central midfielders. Your centre back's probably going to leave in the summer. At the end of the day, Pochettino's miracle working with the Tottenham squad that's got one of the worst central midfields I've ever seen from a top 6 team. Seriously, Harry Winks, Moussa Sissoko, and
No, I don't
Eric
disagree.
Dyer.
I don't disagree.
Woof.
But there are a ton of players I think who've had really good seasons, who've got a bit under the radar. Like Memphis Depay has slightly underperformed his expected goals and assists, and as a result, people aren't talking about him. People talk about Fekir more than they talk about Depay. Depay is quite clearly better than Fekir, I think, and I love Fekir. Like,
I feel like people have pulled off from Lyon first. What's happened to Lyon?
Well, they went out of the Champions League, I think. Like, but even though it now looks like they're much more certain to get Champions League for next season than they looked a couple of months ago. And Torgan Hazard, again, has had a really, really good season in Germany. Finally hearing rumours of big moves for him. So could potentially go to Dortmund as a Pulisic replacement. That would be quite exciting.
That would be exciting. But either way, I mean, I'm struggling to think of that many other players that have gone under the radar. It's hard for players to go under the radar.
People never
the
go under the
spotlight's
radar
so high.
in the Premier League.
I tell you,
I mean, Claude Puel was doing a solid job and was kind of hounded out of Leicester by virtue of being a little bit of a boring bloke and deploying boring football. But like, if you're a middling team in the Premier League who's don't have delusions of grandeur, like Puel was producing pretty solid numbers.
What about, I've completely forgotten his name, which probably does prove that he is underrated, Timo Werner's strike partner at Leipzig.
Youssef Poulsen.
He's outscored Timo Werner this season.
Youssef Poulsen.
And again, like, he's not a player I'd necessarily buy, but he's a player I admire. Like, I mean, you could argue that what he does for Werner in some ways is like what Haller does for Jovic, but
Haller's another one, man. Haller completely slipping under the radar.
Well, now we're seeing him linked to Juve, thank God, because I think he deserves that link. But yeah, I think there are always tons and tons of these players. Like, once you start digging around, you think, like, how much have we heard this season about, I don't know, Saul at Atleti, except, oh, he's linked to Man City. Like, but he's great. He's always been great. He's great again. He's great every season.
Danny Parejo.
Or Morata. Morata's
How
another
old
good
is
example.
Saul now?
24, maybe 25.
He is so good.
He's actually older than you think he is.
Yeah, I think Danny Parejo has been holding Valencia together for about 3 years.
Danny Parejo's outrageous.
Yeah, he is the
Danny
glue.
Parejo's genuinely outrageous. So is Ever Banega.
Yeah,
And Pablo Sarabia at Sevilla and Wissam Ben Yedder are probably the last two. Like, these are guys who are contributing to basically a goal every 90 minutes.
Yeah, Ben Yedder's been a freak this season.
Ben Yedder's numbers are so obscene this season. Like, I genuinely... And actually, last one, Santi Cazorla. Santi Cazorla has been unbelievable. Santi Cazorla's winning the ball back like 3.5 times a game for Villarreal. He's creating 3 chances a game from central midfield.
Because he has an extra finger on his foot now,
He's
doesn't he?
third. You could argue he always did. Like, he's like third in La Liga for chances created per 90 minutes. Like, he scored a brace against Real Madrid.
That was so good.
He got an assist. I'd kind of say an assist and a half against Barcelona midweek.
You know that first goal
amazing.
against Real Madrid that he took first time?
So
and it was
good.
like only 3 other players could have done that in world football.
And after, when you consider that in his last 2 seasons at Arsenal, he made 8 appearances in the league. I think he went 636 days without making an appearance. This season, he's already got 37 appearances in all competitions.
But
I think that is, and he's 34.
Shout out
I
the
think
Achilles
that's delightful. I'm
He
so
was
happy.
he was that good that I think people were like, if he gets back to a decent level of fitness, there's no way this guy isn't good when he comes back.
Shout out the
and he
Achilles
plays.
doctor, man.
Yeah.
Whoever stitched that together did an absolute genius job. Let's go on to personal questions then to finish it off. We'll just do one today. This was from Thero HD. He says, who is your favourite film director and why? That's an interesting one.
Mine's always been Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
Yeah, just.
What's your favourite Scorsese?
Themes that are prevalent in my
What's your favourite
life.
Scorsese?
Catholicism, guilt. My favourite Scorsese film. I mean, listen, I've always loved Goodfellas, but I think Casino is probably a little bit underrated. Mean Streets. That introduced me to the Ronettes. Be My Baby. What a song that is. Yeah, I'll hand it over to you guys. Just Scorsese.
No, I mean, it's a pretty safe option, isn't it? Like, he's pretty good. I don't know. I mean, I love Fincher, and Paolo Sorrentino is really, really good.
Fincher's a great shout. I think Zodiac is a chronically underrated film.
Yeah, I think Fincher generally is quite an underrated filmmaker. Soderbergh was always up there for me before he retired, and then came back, and then retired, and then came back again. But yeah, I love Soderbergh as well. That's it.
What about Greengrass?
Greengrass is good.
Yeah.
Greengrass is good, man.
Bourne's, baby.
You know that?
Nobody directs an
you know
action
this-
sequence like
You know the
Greengrass.
scene in Bourne where
What, so you can't see what's going on?
the camera follows him through the window?
He jumps with the
That's actually
camera.
a guy with a camera, yeah.
Yeah, jumping
Mad.
through the window. Well, it doesn't jump through the window, does he? He's on a harness. And you watch the same thing. I sent it to you, actually.
Then you send it to me, fair play.
Yeah, so either way, those are our favourite directors. And that was this week's episode of Sunday Vibes. If you want to get involved next week, put your comments with your questions below. You can send them to us on Twitter and Reddit as well, all the usual places. Make sure you hit the links in the description below as well to cast your votes for Football Daily in this year's FBAs. What else is happening though, gentlemen, on Football Daily and Euro Football Daily this weekend?
Well, we've got Stat Wars the League, Stat Wars the Champions. I'm not going to be here for a couple of weeks, so you won't be hearing from me, which might be good for all concerned. But on FDFC, we've got non-league vlogs. The boys are planning a new one, so keep your eyes peeled for that in the next couple of weeks. And hopefully, I'll be finished the Barley vlog at the time of,
Will you? You'll be at 2 a.m.
This goes out.
Yeah.
Me and Doogie, went to Bali for 6 days. Just travelled mostly, but lovely place. And
Pastor, anything you want to shout out?
Podcast.
No.
Fair play, I
Well,
respect
Chris
it.
Hamill's podcast, I suppose. I appeared on that.
Oh, yeah. Go
Cheers,
listen to
mate.
that.
So
The
that'll
Chinwag.
go live. And then, of course, there's a new podcast that you should keep your eyes peeled for at some point, which is the Olivia Doddcast.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not called that.
It is called the Doddcast.
absolutely not
Officially.
She wants-
Search Doddcast on your podcast app to find it.
She wants to call it
The Game's Gone Mad.
The Game's Gone Mad, but we are going to persist with Dodcast. So
Informally, working title, Doddcast.
Shocking.
by Robert Dodgrass.
Anyway, that is the end of this week's Sunday Vibes. Goodbye.